All right, so here we are for part 4. I'm feeling much better. In the wake of kind of the cookie-induced kind of sickness that I experienced, I've got my New Japan Pro Wrestling t-shirt, and I'm ready to work on this informative speech for 15 minutes. And that's not really kind of true because I did work on some things in the meantime. Let's see. So there are my informative notes. Okay. I don't think I'm going to be using this math one. But I mean, I can kind of just keep it there. That's just kind of neither here nor there. So let me go to my outline that I've been working on in the meantime. And let's see, can I screen share it? I can. And as you'll see, what I kind of worked on is I've shrunk it back down and turned it into 12-point font, New Times Roman, because that's just what I prefer working with so I can see everything. And in between this kind of installment and the last installment, I did some more research. I did the Google search, right? Because I've already done my database search. I wanted to find some academic kind of research in order to give it some gravitas, and then I went to Google just to kind of find some other websites. Yeah, almost as if like I was like, I don't know, I was watching this kind of painting kind of video recently, and they were like, all right, so here's like certain kind of level of strokes, and then you go back and do another level of strokes. And that's kind of how I approach research from both an academic perspective and then also like an internet kind of like pop like kind of perspective, right? All right, so let's see. And so last time we were here, I was working on my introduction, and I still like this idea that I'm going to kind of name drop this game where there's all these celebrities, and I think it's going to end with Patton Oswalt's, I forget his name, I got to research that, but his character like saying, let's go do something, right? And then what I want to do is, because I like having stories that go back to, what am I trying to say? That wrap up, right? That you start with the same story, you end with. So my creative conclusion is going to be, it's going to be, how does the story of Thunder whatever conclude? It doesn't have to be the conclude. It could also be like, what was the next step in the story, right? So later that evening, Thunder Whoever and his compadres were successful. They had left the dungeon with a loot of, I don't know, whatever, but, that kind of story. So what I also did was I went through my established credibility line, and I just added some more kind of detail. I kind of cleaned it up. So now I have the line, I've been a devoted admirer of the game for over 30 years, and through my experience as a dungeon wanderer and dragon slayer, I've come to find that the game is a very useful tool as a professor of communication philosophy courses within my 22-year career. I don't know, something like that. That might be 2 sentences. It might be a little wordy, but that's what I'm going with for right now. And I'm taking that out because I don't need that. I probably would also recommend bolding these just so you see what the structural parts of this speech are. A lot of students that I've had in the past that have done this, these are usually like kind of the A students, to be honest, because they're just highlighting to themselves that there are certain parts of this, like structural parts, that they need to really kind of adhere to. Structure nerd. All right. Then what I also did with my first point is I just fleshed it out, and I kind of just tried to turn everything into sentences. So now my first point, right, and I can kind of get rid of this, because that's the first point. And I should actually have, if that's a Roman numeral, shouldn't that be Roman? There we go. Yeah. My first point is that Dungeons & Dragons is a game where players and the dungeon master communicate to create a shared imaginary experience. And then I've got my subpoints going. Each players, so players adopt a character, right? You got to construct a character. And I interviewed Josh DeSales. He's a former student of mine who plays Dungeons & Dragons. And you can definitely interview other people. They count as sources I mean, as we get to persuasion, they're not the most credible sources all the time, right? They're not the strongest in regards to argumentation. But for an informative speech such as this, it's very appropriate if you want to interview somebody. So what you want to do is when you cite it in speech, you would actually cite the day that you interviewed them. So here I would write, in a personal interview, I actually spoke with them yesterday. I conducted with longtime D&D enthusiast Josh DeSales, comma, Josh stated, this, and what he told me is each player is assigned or creates a character and is then placed with the scenario by the Dungeon Master. Cool. And what are we creating here? We are creating what is called a preparation outline, because we are writing two outlines, actually. A preparation outline is, again, for me, the speaker, and then the speaking outline is going to be a more condensed version of this that I actually use during my speech as I practice this. All right, so I put Josh's stuff in here. So Josh makes this particular claim, and then I needed an example because I didn't want to just leave it with Josh making this claim. So I think I'm going to talk about the episode of the TV show Community where the players play D&D. I'm just going to use really briefly, because I need an example. I'm like, hey, it's kind of like this TV episode in Community where all these college students who never played before all sat at a table and they were handed characters and the game started. And then, so here the game begins as players tell the group what their characters are doing, as a variety of oddly shaped dice are used to resolve the success of these various actions. And as Daniel Bellardo states from there, right, so this is another personal interview, and this was on June 4th, 2020. I just talked to him. Right, so he's going to say that players and the DM communicate create narrative in which the players are allowed to act freely within the narrative, and then the players and the DM communicate to create a shared imaginary experience. For example, like a tavern. I might talk about that for a little bit. And through this, they have to talk and solve problems. There's a wide range of intellectual challenging problems that D&D poses. For example, this author said this. And then I also condensed this piece of evidence. I don't know if I want to use this like verbatim. I think I want to paraphrase. So I'm making note to myself. Find, in the future, find way to paraphrase? Question mark. It's a note for myself. So there's a piece of evidence, and then here underneath here is my interpretation of that particular evidence. Yep, and that's going to be more. All right, then I also worked on my second point a little bit. If you notice, I turned my second point's tagline into a sentence where somehow my second point is about how the use of alignment within the game's mechanics promotes the exploration of classical problems and issues found within philosophy. Yep, that's what my second point's about. So I'm going to take that and I'm going to put that here on my preview because this is what my second point tries to do. My second point will, what will it do? It will illuminate. Illuminate the use. D&D's use of alignment within the game's mechanics promotes the exploration of classical problems and issues found within problems of classic. These quandaries here. Quandaries. Found within, I think it's actually found within classical philosophy. I'm going to write that. And remember that trick let me spell check that there. And remember that trick I was showing you about how you can copy something from your preview and you can put it right in your review because your review is going to do the exact same thing. All right, I've got outline issues, 1, 2, 3. So conclusion should be a Roman numeral 4, yeah. And then let me do the points. Yeah. I remember to review the points. Don't want to lose points there in the grading. All right, so there we got my first point. And remember, it illuminated. But what I would probably do is I would just use a thesaurus and shuffle around the words. So instead of examined, illuminated, described. The ways D&D's use alignment. Yep. And I also did the same here in my third point. So my third point is about how the game's mechanics and setting require players to utilize reading and writing skills as they navigate the challenge and lore. So that's my third point. So I'm going to copy that, and I'm going to put that right here. My third point will, what will it do? What will it do? What will it do? Do I have a thesaurus in here? I don't. Can I go to one? Thesaurus, word for describe. Narrate, report, express, chronicle, detail, outline, delineate. I like delineate just for fun. Describe, well, detail. I'll have a detail. We'll detail. And then do I just hit that? Yeah, I think so. Detail the manner in which the game's mechanics. Yep. Okay, so then I'm going to copy that. They're going to describe, copy that, and put that into my review. Do I have a thesis yet? Is it still a specific term for my honest about the relationship? So I'm just going to turn this into a thesis right now. Why not just boom? Dungeons and I'm turning this into a thesis because you just want to make sure that your content underneath your specific purpose is exactly what your specific purpose was trying to do. And then I think it's safe to turn your specific purpose into a thesis. So whereas a specific purpose is a phrase, a thesis is a sentence. And where a thesis or a specific purpose tries to be very clear, a thesis sometimes might be more creative, more dynamic in its language. So Dungeons and Dragons is a game with a rich say a rich utility. Let's say a rich educational utility. Skills is a game with a rich, what am I trying to say? Dungeons and Dragons. Is it the game? players can develop a rich useful student-centered skills. No, it's not about the skills. Oh, I don't. Okay, so Dungeons and Dragons. I know. The game mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons have deep, I'm going to say useful, a useful relationship. Is it a useful relationship? As a rich relationship with skills and subject matter. And college students? Sure, why not? I think that's right. I don't know. I never localize it down to college students, so that makes me a little bit nervous if I have somebody who's really listening to my thesis and gonna really scrutinize the relationship it has to my content. So, but since I have a thesis there, I can then start putting in the thesis down here because it's the same thing. I gotta see my thesis up top and I gotta put my thesis at the bottom. So there's my thesis there, and that is suddenly becoming no longer a specific purpose, but now a thesis. For students, I know, interested in developing the game's mechanics of Dungeons and Dragons has a rich relationship with skills and subject matter for students interested in the humanities. And okay, it's there. I don't know, it's not great, but that thesis is there. All right, so that's what I've got. I've got my introduction coming along, got my thesis, my established credibility, my motivate audience, my preview points. Looks like I've got my first point that goes from here to here. And because this is a 4 to 6 minute speech, I want to just be really careful that each point is about 1 minute and 20 seconds in length. Right, so what I might do is I might just practice today just this first point to see if it's 1 minute and 20 seconds and how is it. If it's like 140, I'm gonna need to cut it down. If it's only 50 seconds, I need to add to it. But I really like just dividing each speech up to a specific point and then practicing each point separately. Using like a 30-second for the introduction, 30-second for the conclusion, and 1 minute and 20 seconds for each of the points. Okay, all right, well, I hope all is well. If anybody has any questions, let me know. All right, done with number 4. Cool, cool. All right, progress is being made. Progress is being made. All right, take care, everybody, bye.